and I am going to go over the basics of Microsoft Project tonight. Looking forward to working with you all this semester. I'm going to go ahead and screen share and get right to the presentation. We think everybody can hear everybody else, and please do not hesitate to stop me at any time during the broadcast. While I have it on screen share, I can't see what's going on in the classroom, so I'll check back from time to time, but I'll stop periodically for questions. But if you have a question right at the time, go ahead and ask it. Okay, is everybody ready to get started?
Yep.
Okay, so this is our agenda, and we're going to go through these topics fairly quickly, and it should only take about 30-40 minutes tonight, and so we won't read through them, but we'll just get right to it. Okay, this is the opening screen for Microsoft Project, and the default view is what is referred to as the Gantt chart view. And so if you notice that we have task information that's on the left side of the Gantt chart view, and the calendar is on the right side. So you can toggle between those two. If you put your mouse right in between where those are, you can extend out your the task information, or you can move over to the calendar view. And then while you're in the calendar view, you can also zoom in and zoom out on that. So if you have a big project, you can zoom out to get kind of the macro view, or you can zoom in to just show a couple days if you want to look at the micro view. This is what's referred to as the MS Project ribbon, and provides an easy way to access many of the functions within Microsoft Project. It's very similar to the other Microsoft projects like Word and Excel. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm hearing a little bit of background noise there. Okay, it's gone away. Starting a new project. If you want to start a new project, you click on the View tab and then choose New. You can use many of the templates. When you open Microsoft Project, it basically opens up to a new project, so you can just start typing away and then just save your file. So you don't need to go here to start, but it's another way to start the project. Now, this is project information. So this is a if you want to schedule your project, you can do it in the project information dialog box, and you can also do it right in the program. And so if you want to schedule from the start date, you would click project start date in the schedule from box, and then select the start date in the start date box. And then to schedule from the finish date, I know this is a little bit hard to see, you can click on the project finish date in the schedule from box, and then select the finish date in the finish date. So it's if you schedule from the finish date, if you want to find out how late you can start a project. So if you know you have to finish on a certain date, you can work backwards. However, I recommend that you change this to setting to start to schedule from the start date when the work begins on the project. Okay, entering task and duration. So I'm going to also be referring to your LRE, which is due this week. It's very simple. If you watch this tonight, I think you can basically get it done in just a few minutes. You enter your tasks and durations in the appropriate fields, and so you have task name. You see there build floor, build walls, etc. And then in your duration field, you can enter durations as hours, days, weeks, months. And so to enter a task with a duration of 1 week, the default is 1 day. So if you enter 1 week, just enter a 1 and a W, and that would mean 1 week, or 2W means 2 weeks. For what you'll be doing, you could, and even for your not only your LRE but for your team project, I think most people tend to enter their durations in days. I think it's just helpful. Task durations can also be entered as tests, and so this is especially useful for uncertain tasks, such as task 4 below, build door. Notice that the cell is also highlighted here, and you see where it says a few hours, it's a little bit blue there. And so basically that this can only be accomplished while you're in manually scheduled mode, which I'll show you, talk about a little bit later. But you'll notice that manually scheduled mode by the different icon in the task mode column. So right there on the left, you'll see task 1, 2, and 3 are auto scheduled, which I'll talk about later, and then task 4 is manually scheduled. So if you're not sure you have a few tasks in your project that you're not sure about, if you just type in, you can type in anything there, and if it's something that project doesn't recognize by like a W for week or D for days, then it'll show up blue there, and you can go back and fill that in later. All right, entering predecessors. Enter the task number of the task that needs to be completed before a task can be started or completed in the predecessors column. If you don't see your predecessors column, if you just take your mouse and mouse over just on the right side there, you can slide the task view down into your calendar area, and you'll see more columns show up. You can also right-click in there, and it'll say Insert Tasks, and then or Insert Field, and you can pick from. There's several hundred of them that you can put in there, but we're just gonna be using a few in this class. And so there you see on line 2. That in the predecessors column, that's got a 1 in it. So if you look at line 1, that's build floor. So your predecessor for building the walls is building the floor. So you need to have the floor done before you can build the walls. And there for build roof, I have a line in there, a number there, number 2. The roof won't be done until you finish building the walls. And you can also put, as you look at line 4, where it says build door, I have a predecessor line 3, build the roof, and also a predecessor building the walls. Well, since building the roof needs the walls to be done, that's a little bit redundant, but it just shows you that in your predecessors column, you could say, certain lines need to be done before that one. So I could have a 3/2/1, etc. So if you have your project for your team activity is probably going to be about the good ones are about 100 lines or close to it, something like that. So, so you can just it's not going to be too extensive because you only have basically a little over a week to get this done. But I would say if you think about building a store, which you will be doing for your project, if you take all the major tasks like clearing the land and building the shell, and then you're going to have subtasks, which I'll talk about later, within those major tasks. It's not hard to get up, close to 100 lines, and you don't need to get into a lot of detail. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Are there any questions at this point?
Not yet. I'm
okay.
Good.
Awesome. Great. Well, okay, linking tasks. So notice how all the tasks automatically start on the same date when there are no predecessors entered. So the predecessors column there's nothing there, and so if you start typing in your task and you say how long that they take, then basically they're all going to start on the same day. So obviously many project tasks need to be completed, like we talked about in the previous slide, after another task has been completed or started. And so there's a quick way to link all these tasks together, which I'll show you in the next slide. So this is a way of linking tasks. It's the same as entering predecessors. So you can either enter a task as a predecessor in the predecessor column by indicating what line number it is, or you can actually link them, and when you link them, the software will put that line number in. So if I wanted to link all these tasks, I just highlight all of them. It's just like using Excel, and you want to highlight all the tasks that need to be linked, and then click on the chain link in the ribbon. And each link represents a finish to start relationship, and so that's the default in Microsoft Project. There's other type of relationships which we won't really get into too much, but finish to start relationship means you need to finish a task before you can start on the next task if it has a predecessor. So you need to finish building the floor before you can build the walls, and that's the default, and that's the normal relationship in a construction project like what you guys will be doing for your team project. And so when I highlighted all those tasks, and when I clicked on that chain link, then the software went in there and put a 1 in line 2, a 2 in line 3 as the predecessor. It's automatically going to link those together. You probably won't be doing a whole lot of that. You'll probably be doing more of entering the line number as a predecessor, but it's just another way to do it. And I talked about task dependencies on the last slide. You can change the task dependency by right-clicking on the arrow shown between task and the calendar view. So you see where that red line is, you see the little arrows going between there. If you click on the arrow, then that box pulls up the task dependency box. And so that's a finish to start relationship. for as an example, you could have um, a start to start relationship. If you're putting in conduit for as you're say you're putting in conduit for your wiring and things at the store, as you start to build the conduit in certain sections, you can start putting the wiring through it, so you don't have to complete all of the conduit before you can start putting in the wiring in. That might be that's an example of a start to start. You can start once you start doing it. You can start and you once you start putting the conduit in, then you can start inserting the wire as you go along. You don't have to finish the task completely, basically. But for pretty much, you will be using a finish to start relationship for most of your tasks.
Quick question.
Sure.
So the link icon, do you highlight and use the link icon before manually entering in the predecessors, or like, because if I delete the predecessors and I highlight it and use the link icon, it automatically did predecessors for me. Is that the purpose of that icon?
The
Does that make sense?
the little line that goes between the tasks.
Yeah, you said if I highlight
If you click on
task name through
if you click
finish.
if you click on that line and then
Uh-huh.
you right click on it, then that box will show up. So that line won't show up until the between tasks. Just for example, build floor and build walls, right where I'm pointing to. That arrow will show up as soon as you put that 1 in line 2, and that's showing that those tasks are dependent on each other. And so if you right click there, then you can control the type of dependency it is, whether it's a finish to start, start to start, etc. But
Okay.
you really won't need to get into that too much. I think most of
Okay.
your tasks really are going to be finished to start. So it's just how you can. That's one way that you can get in there and change that dependency. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, showing the critical path. This is very important because this is what you're going to have to do in your LRE. So um, basically, the critical path in a project is the shortest time that the project can get done. And so as you basically, to show your critical path, I'll talk a little more about it. You place a check in the critical task checkbox, which is on your format tab. Right there at the top in the middle, you see I put a check there. And so what that's going to do is show you your critical tasks. And you can also show critical tasks in red on the task view by formatting the text color of the critical task shown in red. I'll show you a little bit about that. So the left area, if you click on text styles, see how on the calendar view you have your critical tasks are shown in red. Okay, so if you want your critical tasks to be shown in red in the task view, then if you click on text styles and then you look down at that text styles box, that'll pop up. I've got in the very top it says item to change, and I pulled up critical tasks, and then I changed the color of them to red. So that's super helpful when you're looking at your project because you don't have to go back and forth to figure out which tasks are critical. So basically, for this, you have everything is a critical task except build door, because so for example, build floor takes 1 day. Okay, well, since build walls is dependent on building floor, then if you have any delay in your building your floor, say it takes 2 days, that's going to delay your whole project. Okay, so that's why your critical tasks are really important, because if you're managing a project and something is on your critical path, basically everything there in red, if you have a delay in any of those tasks, it's going to extend your project. Okay, so the build door only takes 4 hours. Okay, so the reason that's not a critical task is because it only takes 4 hours and it needs you to have the walls and the roof done. So if you're delayed by a couple hours, or if you're delayed by more than 4 hours, it would become critical. But you could delay that by 2 hours and still build your door, and it's not going to delay your project. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so that on your LRE, that's one of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to show the critical path. You only have 4 tasks, so it's really simple. So you just place your check in the critical task chat box and on the format tab, and you'll see your task turn red in your calendar view. Okay, and then if you want to show them in the task view, then that's when you click on your text styles. And so I recommend as soon as you start your project, especially your team project, click on your critical task checkbox and also change your text styles for all of your critical tasks to red. And that's I don't think it's required, but it makes it when you're looking at it, it's really good that you can see those things. And I'll show you how you can change other types of tasks also, which will really help you a lot. Okay, filtering tasks. So if you choose critical and the filter drop down there at the top right, you see where it says critical, and so basically that's your filter to show only the critical tasks on your Gantt chart. So you can also filter other kinds of tasks such as milestones, which is important, and I'll show you how it will be helpful for you to complete your LRE, because not only do you need to just build a sample project, but you have to open the project renovation example, okay, and that file's in the classroom, and you have to identify certain critical tasks and certain milestones. So if you filter those, if you use this filter, then basically if you filter milestones, for example, I'll show you in a later slide, then it's only going to show you the milestone tasks. And so it'll make answering the questions in the LRE very easy, because it's going to ask you which, name the second milestone in the project, for example. And so if you filter those, then basically they're just going to pop right out. And you can also change the text style of your milestone tasks and make those green, for example, or blue. So you have things can be color coded within your file, which makes it very easy to go through and view the important parts of your project. All right, using auto schedule. So tasks can be either auto scheduled based on the duration and the predecessors, or they can be manually scheduled. And so if you click on auto schedule on the task tab, you can automatically schedule tasks based on the task predecessors and durations. Okay, and Jillian, I showed you this right before we got started tonight. We were just talking about it a little bit. It's already set up for auto schedule. So
okay,
that's basically you're using the power of the software by using auto schedule. I mean, if it's easy to go through, and especially in the LRE when you have to build your your small project that's got 4 tasks, and a lot of students will do this. They'll go in and it's easy to figure out when their start and finish date is if you only have 4 tasks and they're only a day or two. I mean, and so what a lot of students will fall into that trap, and they'll start figuring it out and just start typing the dates in and manually schedule it. But when you get into a complex project, you want it auto scheduled. So say the funding from your project is delayed by 6 months and you can't start for 6 months. Well, if your project's auto scheduled based on the duration and the predecessors, then you can just move your start date out 6 months and all the dates will follow suit. So if you typed all your dates in there, then you might as well be using Microsoft Excel, because you're not really using the power of the software. So I recommend putting that one of the first things, making sure that you're on auto schedule. And you can change the scheduling mode by clicking on the icon in the task mode column. And so, I'm sorry, the default scheduling function is manually, but that might be changed because I just went over it with Jillian. And if you go through for your LRE and type in your tasks and your durations and your predecessors, it's automatically filling in the dates, right, Jillian?
Yeah, actually, it was manual schedule, but even after I put in the dates automatically came up anyway.
Okay, all right, that's good. So really, your start date usually defaults to the current date. So for your LRE and really for your team project, You don't want to be. That's the easiest way to run into problems is to figure out your start and finish dates and key them in there, because it's just going to cause you problems. So click on auto schedule and have it be automatically scheduled. For the most part, that's going to be the way that you do it. Like I said, if your project's delayed 6 months, then you want to change your start date and have all the other dates follow suit. You can also change the scheduling mode of new tasks by clicking on the green tab shown below, and this tab's located at the bottom left of your Microsoft project window. So you can click on there and have new task auto scheduled or manually scheduled. Okay, so in this example, the following tasks were entered using manually scheduled. So you see in the task mode, see all the push pins? That tells you that they were manually scheduled. And notice the red line under the finish date for task 3. That indicates you have a problem. And I'm sorry, that arrow is kind of right in the way. There we go. So basically, if you look at that one, you've got for build roof, it takes 1 day. You need to have the walls built, before you build the roof. And so I've got it starting on that day and ending on the same day. Well, if it takes a day, then if it takes a day to do it, then you wouldn't really you'd be finished according to the software the following day. So whenever you see a red line under your finish date, then that shows that you have a problem, and this is an easy way to fix it. And it's using auto schedule. So here we have task 3 build roof. It's been scheduled to start before task 2 build walls is complete. And I'm sorry, the reason it's showing up is because on build walls, your finish date there is Monday the 1st of April. And so you keyed in there to build the roof before on the 29th of March. So you did it before the walls were done. And so that's when it's going to show you that there's a problem right there. And I'm going to show you an easy way to fix it by using auto schedule.
If you right click it, will it show you why there's a red line underneath?
I'm not sure. I don't have it up right now. You can try it, but if you see that on there, that indicates that you have a problem. And so you can try it, and like you've already started working, Jillian, and if you just try to start one of the tasks, like the task C, before task B is finished, and then you'll see that pop up. So, and I'm going to show you an easy way to fix that using the software instead of going in and trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so basically what you do is you highlight the start and finish dates for the set of tasks you want to auto schedule, just like using Excel like we did before. See how they're all grayed out there. And then what I did was clicked on that, and then I clicked on auto schedule, showing up there in green at the top right. So I highlighted the task, clicked on auto schedule, then the software fixed my problem. It knows that build roof needs build walls to be complete, and so since they're not complete until the 1st, then it automatically schedules it build roof on the 2nd of April, and your problem is fixed. And so the critical path now is complete from the start to finish of the project. However, I don't have the critical path highlighted in this particular slide. Okay, inserting tasks. This is also similar to Excel. So you highlight a task and right-click to see a set of options for that task, and you see right there where the arrow is pointing, insert task. So it's just like Excel. If you want to insert another line in your spreadsheet, you right-click it, insert a line. So you'll be using this a lot as you go through your project. You're like, oh, I forgot a task. How do I put it in there? You just right-click. The new task is inserted just above the current task that you have highlighted. So if you forget something, then you can right-click and then just put it in there. Creating milestones. This is important because in your LRE, you're going to need to identify a certain milestone in the renovation project example, and you also will have to have milestones in your team project. So basically, milestones they're reference points to mark the end of phases of a project. You've heard this a lot. They have a task duration of 0, okay, by definition. So you'll notice that there's a diamond symbol for the task shown in the calendar view. It's a little hard to see, but it's right by that 4-3, and so it's shell complete. So that basically, once the shell of the shed is complete, I want to go ahead and mark it with a milestone. Yay, we finished the shell. And so it needs all those things. And so it's shell complete is not a task. It's not an activity. It's a milestone. If you put any task in there and give it a duration of 0, automatically it's a milestone because it doesn't take any time. So you can also change the color of milestone tasks, which is shown in green here, just as we did with critical task earlier, by, again, clicking on your text styles, and that box in the bottom left will show up. And if you see at the very top, item to change milestone task, and then I change those to green. So then when you're looking through your project, especially if this was like 100 lines or so, or even more extensive, then you can see all the milestone tasks. It'll just pop right out there for you. So it's easy to look at this and say, oh, I see 1, 2, 3, and 6 are critical, and line 5 shall complete as a milestone task. Are there any questions?
There's one brewing, but I'm not ready to ask it yet.
No problem. Just let me know, or just chime on in. Okay, creating subtasks. This is important because I'll talk a little bit about your project and the number of levels that you need to have. So creating subtasks is accomplished by highlighting a group of tasks and then clicking on the indent icon on the task tab. So you see that arrow right there at the top. And that's an indent or outdent, okay? And so this will transform these tasks to subtasks of the task directly above the highlighted task. So in this example, I had all the activities: build floor, build walls, build roof. And so if I'm like, well, I want to name this project and have all these activities be part of build shed. So basically, I went in there and I inserted a line above build floor and said build shed. Then I highlighted all of the tasks below that, okay? And then I hit the indent button, okay? And so what that did is that basically made all those tasks subtasks of build shed. And so you'll see in the duration and the start and finish for the build shed, it's all based on your subtask below that, okay? So for your team project, if you see 2 levels here, like you have the main level build shed and then you have the sub task of build shed, I think that you probably should have about 3 levels, okay, to your project. So you're seeing 2 there, and so you probably have 3. I mean, due to the amount of time that you have to complete this, you can't get in super detail with the tasks for certain things that will need to be completed. So just think about creating, all of your major tasks, like clearing the land, building the shell, completing the outside, outfitting the inside, and then think of the things that you'll need to do for each of those. And then for some of them, you might want to get into a little bit more. So if, for example, if build floor, if just say the items below that were part of build floor, if I wanted to make them part of that, then I would highlight build walls on down and hit the indent, and that would make it part of build floor. For your project, for your team project, your line 1 is going to be build store, okay? And it's basically, that's going to show you, you want to have that in there. That's going to show you the complete summary of the project right there on line 1. Okay, and then you'll have subcomponents, as I mentioned, like clear land, build shell, etc. And then under build shell, you'll have you'll have some subtasks like framing the walls, putting the walls up, things like that. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You can also outdent task if you wanted to. So if all these were on the same line, I could either highlight line 2 through 7 and indent it, or I could just highlight 1 and outdent it using the outdent to the left arrow. So either one of those will accomplish the same thing. Is that clear?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, assigning resources. You can assign resources to a task by entering them in the resources names column. So you see there on the right before you get to the calendar, I have resource names. So if you don't see that when you drag you drag that line between the task view and the calendar view, right-click up there in that gray area, anywhere in there where it says resources names, anywhere under predecessors, just as long as you're in that bar, if you right-click, it'll say insert column. and then you'll see the list come down of several hundred different columns that you could actually put in there. You choose resource names, and that way you can say, okay, we got Neil, he's been assigned to build the floor, the walls, and the roof, and then Richard was assigned to build the door. Basically, if you see there at the bottom there, that arrow, once you have a resource name in your project, and you can use fictitious names if you want, obviously, because this is a fictitious store that you're building. As soon as you assign somebody, when you go to assign a person to like apply shingles, I went in there and it's automatically going to now show you that Neil and Richard are working on the project, and so you can just pick one of them. You need to make sure though that you don't over allocate somebody and have them working on, two tasks at the same time, because if they're 100% allocated to working on something, they obviously can't work on two tasks at the same time. So you would see that if you did that in that first column, that little I symbol there in blue, it would show, it'd be an indicator there saying, hey, you've allocated, you've got Neil, say you're building the walls and the roof, say you were at the same time, you're doing it at the same time, and you had the same person allocated to do that full time. Well, that's impossible because they can only work on one thing at a time. Assigning cost, again, here you can assign cost to a task by entering them in the cost column. Notice how the summary task build shed computes the total cost from the cost of the subtask. So I went in there under build floor, I put 500, I put 700 for the walls, 800 for the roof, and so all that in that first line there, it's adding everything up. So that's why I said for your team project, you're going to put your cost in there for the various components of it, and we're not expecting you to we just want your best estimate of it. So don't spend too much time on how much is it going to cost you this. Well, just try to get a ballpark idea. It's more looking at the overall project and the fact that you know how to assign costs. Okay, if something's unrealistic, we're not expecting you to do a little bit of research, but just if it's in the ballpark, I think you're going to be fine. Okay, but that shows how when you assign the cost to the subtask, it's automatically going to add up the total there in your first line. And so, like for your store that you build, you can say build store, and then you can look right there on the top line and see what it's going to cost, and then you can see the various components of that. Okay, back to the LRE. Question 4, where you're going to have to build just a real simple project. And I talked to Jillian about this earlier. If you follow these steps right here, you'll have it done. So you enter your task durations, your predecessors. Don't try to enter any dates. Basically, you want to highlight all the tasks. If it doesn't do it for you automatically, I think it was for Jillian, click on Auto Schedule on the Task tab like I showed you earlier, and then click Critical Task on the Format toolbar. And then what you're going to see is 3 tasks on the critical path as shown in the calendar view. They'll be shown in red. And so you have 2 scenarios where task 3 changes from, I think, 1 time unit to 3 time units. This is really simple. So when you have your 4 tasks, only 3 of them are going to be critical based on the way we set up the problem. All right. And so when you change the time from task C from 1 time unit to 3 time units, basically you're going to see that critical path change. You're still going to have 3 items, but they're going to be different. They're not going to be the same 3 tasks, so it's going to change. And so when you'll see that. So take a screenshot and paste that into your LRE assignment. So basically what I'd like to see is basically answer the questions. The questions refer to the project renovation example, and then take screenshots of I want to see 2 screenshots. One when you have task C at 1 day, and then one at task C at 3 days. And you'll see what happens to the critical path. So just take them and paste them into your document that has your answers to the other questions. And so that makes it super helpful for me when I don't need to see, you don't need to submit your Microsoft project file. This is so simple that if you take a screenshot of it, I can look at it and see if there's any problems. And so that way I can just open one file, see all your answers, and then grade the assignment. It's pass fail, so I will work with you until you get a pass. So don't worry about that. I want everybody to just have a basic understanding of Microsoft projects so you understand it and you can be a valuable contributor to your team assignment that's due in week 3. So you can use the snipper tool, if you're familiar with that, as an accessory in Windows 7 and above. That's really super helpful. I use it all the time at work and at home. And so just take a little snippet, or you can do a print screen with your keyboard, print the screen, and then paste it into your document with the other answers, and then explain what happened. So when you change that, look at the critical path, see what happened to the critical path, and just write what happened to the critical path. It's very easy. You only have 4 tasks, so it's very simple. And then on the project renovation example where I showed you earlier how to filter tasks or change the color of tasks, like we made milestones green, critical tasks were red. If you filter it or change the text color, the answers to the first couple questions will pop right out at you. So instead of trying to sort through the 100 lines or so that's in that example, just either filter your milestone task and your critical task, depending on what the question asks you, and then the answers are going to pop right out there. That's what makes it, why I showed you that, because that will make it much easier for you to answer the questions instead of trying to dig through and try to figure it out. Just filter those tasks, and then they'll just show up, and then you can answer those questions. And if you follow these steps on building this real simple Microsoft project file with only 4 tasks, that really literally should only take you a couple minutes. If you just type in the task duration, the predecessors, the dates are going to fill in. Click on the critical path checkbox. You'll see the bars turn red for the critical tasks, and you'll be done. It should only take you a few minutes, especially if you can't watch this tonight, or any of you out there that are picking this up on the archive. That's basically it. So I try to keep it as short and sweet, and just and show you what you need to know. I mean, the Microsoft project is very powerful software, and I know enough to scratch the surface, and you're not expected to become experts in Microsoft project. It would take you such a long time because there's just so much to the software. We're just going to use the basic things, do a basic project on building a store, and as I mentioned, you don't need to get into a lot of detail about the costs and things like that. Just throw your best guess out there. We want you to show us that you can use the basics of the software. Are there any questions?
Yes, that question that was brewing earlier.
Okay.
Okay, so I went to my filter, and if I put in critical, I see that that's clear. It shows which ones are critical, but if I put milestones, nothing shows up.
Because you don't have a milestone in there. So if you wanted to just go in there and make a 5th task, just for example, just type in task E, okay?
Okay.
Now give it a duration of 0, because if you give it a duration of 0, it's going to make it a milestone. And then it should show up for you.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I see. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I think when I downloaded this earlier, I guess I just only have the viewer. I went to the DreamSpark site and tried to download it, and it didn't work.
Okay.
So I'm not sure exactly what I did wrong.
What do you mean you have the viewer?
Well, when I downloaded it earlier, it downloaded Project Viewer 2013.
Okay.
So
go back to DreamSpark and just make sure you get the just the Microsoft project software. I think I'm not familiar with it, but it sounds like another type of software you can get from them. Okay. You should be fine. I mean, that was probably free, and this software is free. So just go back there and make sure you have it. Should say Microsoft Project 2013. I think professional.
Dom, you're using a Mac, right?
Well, it could be. It may have only downloaded Viewer because I'm on my work computer. I'm not. I'll try it again, but.
And just make sure you have administrative rights to download that software.
Okay.
Yeah, because in some cases, depending on where you work, sometimes they'll put blocks on that, so they only let certain administrators download software. Thank goodness, because I work at a college bookstore, and we have about 60 students that work there, and they all use this one computer to do different things. And so I can imagine how bad it would be if we let them download software. So
Yeah, I may have to just talk to my manager because I'm pretty sure she'll be cool with me contacting IT to put this on my work laptop. But I'm gonna try it again, and if
okay.
not, then I'll try to do a workaround
Okay. Yeah, just
on my Mac.
let me know if you have any problems.
Okay.
And it's great. I mean, just the ability to get this software for free is awesome. I mean,
Yeah, seriously.
it's a great value, you know. And you know, you might find once you get into it that you could, you know, integrate it at work, you know, and use it for certain things at work. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, any other questions, Rex? Are you still out there?
Hmm.
I'm just switching back here and turning off my screen share. All right, Rex, see his icon down there. So, well, thank you guys so much. I
Thank
appreciate you
you.
so much for coming tonight. It
Thank
makes it
you.
all worthwhile for me. And I hope you got the basics down. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on traveling and be in Costa Rica starting Friday for the
Oh
next
my
week.
goodness.
Oh, wow.
I'm planning on going there in October for my 30th birthday.
You went there?
I'm planning on in October for my 30th.
Okay.
Oh, that's fun.
Um, so anyway, the best way to reach me is by email. I will be staying on top of that and also in the classroom. So I'm excited to be working with you guys this semester, and can't wait to look at your LREs. And get that.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right.
I really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, guys. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast and let if there's any more questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you, guys.
All right. Good night.
Have a
Good
good
night.
night.